The chosen one. The storm raged inside you long before the thunder reached the sky. You heard the call, faint at first, like a whisper buried beneath the noise of the world. It was not a voice from outside, but a trembling inside your bones, a vibration that carried both promise and fear. You did not ask to be chosen, yet something ancient placed its mark upon your heart. And since that day, peace has become both your desire and your exile. You try to dismiss it, to reason with the silence, to live as others live. But every night, as the world folds itself into sleep, a question rises from within. What if you were meant for something more? That question has teeth. It bites into your certainty, gnaws at your comfort, and refuses to let you rest. You turn your face to the dark and ask for proof, for clarity, but heaven answers in riddles. The light does not reveal itself all at once. It flickers between belief and confusion, testing your willingness to see when nothing seems visible. You tell yourself that doubt is wisdom, that hesitation protects you from failure, but deep down you know it is fear dressed as logic. The call has not left you. It waits, patient and merciless. The storms outside are only mirrors of the storm within. You can silence the noise of the world, but you cannot silence the sound of your destiny echoing through your spirit. And yet, you resist. You remember the moments when faith betrayed you, when you prayed and nothing moved, when you hoped and the door remained closed. The memory of delay feels like rejection, and in that bitterness, your heart builds walls higher than mountains. You speak of surrender, but clutch control like a weapon. You fear being disappointed again. You fear stepping into the water and sinking before the miracle arrives. But what if the sinking is part of the calling? What if faith is not about walking unbroken, but about breaking open until all that remains is trust? You remember Peter stepping out of the boat. You imagine the wind, the roar, the trembling wood beneath his feet. He did not wait for calm seas. He moved while the storm still screamed. His miracle did not begin when the waves stilled. It began when he dared to believe amid the chaos. And perhaps that is what the call truly means. Not escape from the storm, but transformation within it. The whisper returns. Come. One word, stripped of comfort, filled with danger. Your hands shake. Your mind lists reasons to stay in the boat, the world's expectations, your unhealed wounds, your fear of being seen. But the word does not change. Come. It does not explain. It does not negotiate. It simply waits for your response. Destiny is never loud. It only grows louder when ignored. You take a step, not on water, but into the unknown within yourself. The first step always feels like falling. The air grows heavier, the silence sharper. You think of all the ways you might fail, and each thought weighs your soul like an anchor. You question everything, your worth, your timing, even God himself. Yet, in that questioning, something sacred happens. The storm begins to reveal its true face. It was never your enemy. It was your initiation. Every chosen soul must walk through doubt to prove the truth of their calling. Faith untested is merely fantasy. So you walk, trembling but awake. The wind howls, but beneath the sound you begin to hear another rhythm, the pulse of your own belief, fragile yet alive. For the first time, you sense that the ground beneath you is not made of certainty, but of promise. You recall the serpent in the garden whispering, "Did God really say?" It was never a question of God's power. It was a question of human trust. That same whisper stalks you now, modern and subtle, disguised as reason, dressed in the language of logic. It says, "Do not risk it. Wait until the time is right. You are not ready." And part of you agrees. Yet another part, the deeper, older part, knows that waiting is just another word for hiding. The wind picks up again. You close your eyes. Between each crash of thunder, you feel something ancient move inside you. Not fear, not even courage, but remembrance. You have been here before, in countless forms and lifetimes, always standing at the edge between safety and surrender. Every time you hesitated, the story paused. Every time you stepped forward, destiny unfolded like dawn after endless night. And so you step again, not because you understand, but because you refuse to live asleep. The water is cold against your spirit, but faith burns hotter. You move forward, not on the promise of clarity, but on the strength of trust. You are not waiting for the storm to end. You are learning to walk through it. The journey begins not when the path is visible, but when you choose to walk blind. The first steps of purpose are always taken in darkness. That is how heaven measures belief, not by how loudly you pray, but by how silently you obey. The thunder does not fade, but it changes tone, as if recognizing you as one of its own. The storm is no longer your punishment, it becomes your companion. Each wave that once threatened to drown you now baptizes you deeper into faith. The light flickers again, not around you, but within you. The whisper grows into a voice. You were never meant to be safe. You were meant to be sacred. The words strike something buried deep. You fall to your knees, not in defeat, but in revelation. The pain you feared becomes the proof of your calling. The confusion you cursed becomes the classroom of your transformation. Every unanswered prayer was never a silence of rejection, but a preparation for power. And then the voice fades. Only your heartbeat remains. You are alone again, but not abandoned. You realize that divine instruction often sounds like emptiness because it asks you to fill it with faith. You stand, soaked in uncertainty, but alive with purpose. The night is still dark, but the darkness no longer defines you. You carry the spark now. The storm outside cannot destroy the fire inside. You whisper to yourself not as comfort, but as command. I believe. The words taste strange, heavy, alive. You say them again, stronger, this time. I believe. The ground does not shake. The heavens do not open. But something shifts. The war inside you quiets for the first time. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move despite it. You walk forward, one breath at a time, one heartbeat after another. The storm follows but cannot consume you. You begin to understand that being chosen does not mean being spared from struggle. It means being trusted to survive it. Every drop of rain becomes a reminder. You were built for this. Every gust of wind becomes a prophecy. Your destiny is louder than your doubt. As the night stretches endless, a subtle light begins to rise at the horizon. It is not dawn yet, but it is promise. You know that beyond this moment lies more testing, more breaking, more faith demanded than you think you have to give. But for now, you breathe. You have answered the call. You have stepped into the unknown. The journey has begun. If you feel this truth, hit like and subscribe. Write 333 inches the comments. It's a prophetic sign of your divine alignment. And remember, the storm was never sent to destroy you. It was sent to reveal you, the chosen one. The silence after the storm felt almost unbearable. You thought peace would follow obedience, but instead, you met stillness vast, hollow, and echoing with unanswered questions. You expected clarity, yet all you found was the sound of your own breath, trembling between faith and fear. You stood in the middle of a battlefield, where no swords clashed, yet something inside you was fighting to survive. The real war began not around you, but within you. The enemy did not come with fire or chains, he came with whispers. They slipped through the cracks of your faith, subtle and familiar. You are not ready. You imagined the call. You will fail again. The words crawled through your thoughts like smoke through a room, invisible, yet suffocating. You tried to pray, but the whispers grew louder. You tried to believe, but belief felt fragile, like glass beneath your feet. You began to question everything, the call, the promise, even the voice that once filled you with light. You asked the heavens for another sign, another confirmation, something to prove you were still on the right path. But heaven remained silent, as if testing whether your faith could stand without applause. You started to wonder if silence was punishment or preparation. The difference, you realized, depends entirely on how long you are willing to wait. Doubt does not announce itself as rebellion. It arrives disguised as wisdom. It says, be logical, protect yourself, stop believing in what you cannot see. It wraps itself around your thoughts until you begin to mistake caution for clarity. But the truth is, caution is the language of fear, and fear is the only barrier between you and destiny. You remember Peter's story again the moment his faith broke beneath the wind. You imagine that sinking feeling in your chest as the water swallowed his courage. It wasn't the storm that defeated him, it was the moment his attention shifted from divine presence to visible danger. And you recognize the same pattern in yourself, the same shift, the same betrayal of faith by sight. You see the waves in your life, rejection, delay, loss, and each one whispers the same question: did God really say? That question has followed humanity since the beginning of time. It's never shouted. It's always whispered. It hides behind logic, behind experience, behind disappointment. The serpent in the garden did not attack Eve with force, but with doubt. He simply questioned what she knew to be true. And that's how faith unravels, not in a moment of rebellion, but in a moment of uncertainty. You start to feel the weight of that realization. Every time you let doubt linger, you rewrite your destiny one hesitation at a time. Every time you believe the whisper, a piece of your promise slips into the shadows. You wonder how many blessings you've delayed by listening to the wrong voice. How many doors remained closed because you were too afraid to knock again. The thought breaks you, not with despair, but with revelation. You see how cunning the war really is. The enemy does not fight your body, he fights your belief. Because if he can corrupt your faith, he can corrupt your future. Every miracle in your life stands on one fragile truth: your willingness to believe without proof. That is why the whispers never stop. They target the root, not the fruit. You fall to your knees and whisper, "Why me?" The words leave your mouth like a confession. You did not ask to be chosen. You did not ask for the storms, the silence, the sleepless nights of wondering if you misheard heaven. Yet the call persists. You sense that being chosen is not about being worthy, but about being willing to wrestle with angels and demons inside your own heart, until faith becomes the only thing left standing. You look around and realize that no one can see the battle you're fighting. People smile at you, admire your strength, and call you blessed. But they don't see the nights when you question everything. They don't see the prayers that end in tears. They don't see how you wake up every morning pretending that faith still feels easy. You are surrounded yet unseen. You are celebrated yet misunderstood. You are chosen, and that has always been both a gift and a burden. The war intensifies. The whispers evolve. They begin to mimic your own voice now, making it harder to tell where the doubt begins and where you end. You try to drown them out with music, with prayer, with movement, but they follow you into every quiet room. And then, when you finally collapse from exhaustion, the smallest, gentlest voice cuts through the noise. It does not shout, it does not demand. It simply says, "I never left." You freeze. It is not external. It is within you. It is the same voice that once called you, "Come." It was never gone. You had just buried it, beneath fear. You realize that the divine does not compete with chaos. It waits for you to quiet down enough to listen. The war was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to teach you how to hear truth through distortion. You take a deep breath. The air feels different, heavier but clearer. You understand something sacred now. Doubt will always exist, but it only has power when you agree with it. You don't need to silence every whisper. You only need to stop believing them. Faith is not the absence of doubt. It's the decision to move despite it. You rise again. The battlefield within you grows still. The whispers fade, not because they have vanished, but because you have stopped giving them authority. You speak aloud, softly, but with conviction. "I believe what God said about me. I am chosen. I am enough. I am not too late." The words taste like defiance, like reclaiming territory you didn't know you had lost. A strange peace fills the room. You feel lighter, but not empty. You feel watched over, though no one is there. You know the war will return, but next time, you will recognize the voice of your enemy. You will not mistake it for your own. You will not let doubt rewrite what was written in eternity. You step outside. The sky is still gray, the wind still cold, but it no longer feels like judgment. It feels like renewal. Every gust reminds you that storms do not erase purpose, they reveal it. You walk into the wind, unhurried, unafraid. You no longer need proof of your destiny. You carry it within your scars, within your persistence, within the quiet defiance of your belief. You are not who you were before the storm. Something has shifted. The call has not changed, but you have. You now understand that being chosen means being refined in silence, not rewarded with ease. The whispers will come again, but this time, they will find no home in you. As you disappear into the dim horizon, the voice returns one last time, soft, firm, eternal. Keep walking. The light is waiting for the one who refuses to give up in the dark. If this message stirred something in your soul, write 333 inches the comments. It's a prophetic sign of your divine alignment. And remember, the war within you is not your punishment. It is your proof. The chosen one, The silence is different now. It does not comfort you anymore. It challenges you. You wake before dawn, eyes open but heavy with the weight of invisible wars. Something inside you feels stretched, fragile, like glass about to shatter. You have walked through storms, survived doubt, and yet a deeper ache begins to rise. The ache of waiting without seeing. You thought obedience would bring reward, but obedience brought wilderness. Every chosen soul must pass through the desert before they reach destiny. It is the place where belief is stripped bare, where faith is not adorned with miracles but measured by endurance. And here you are, the wilderness between promise and fulfillment, between calling and confirmation. You whisper prayers that feel heavier than words, and heaven seems motionless. You ask, "Have I done something wrong?" But no answer comes. Only silence, vast and unbroken. You begin to notice how time feels slower in the desert. Every day looks the same. Every step feels circular. You try to cling to purpose, but doubt returns. Not as fear this time, but as exhaustion. You have grown tired of believing, tired of hoping, tired of pretending that faith still feels alive. You stand in the middle of your own surrender, and for the first time, you consider turning back. But where would you go? You can't return to who you were before the call. That version of you is gone. You left them behind when you said yes. The desert is not punishment, it is purification. It strips away every illusion of control until only truth remains. Yet, in the middle of that truth, you find yourself asking, why does faith hurt so much? You start to understand that faith is not built in comfort, it is built in contradiction. You believe, even when it feels foolish. You trust even when it feels pointless. You praise even when everything in you wants to fall silent. The breaking point is not the end, it is the threshold where faith becomes real. And sometimes, before the miracle comes, you must reach the point where you have nothing left to offer but surrender. The breaking begins quietly. You feel it in your chest, in the tension between who you are and who you are called to become. You try to hold everything together, the responsibilities, the appearances, the fragile fragments of your hope, but one by one, they begin to slip. The smile you wear starts to fade. The words of faith you used to speak now taste hollow. You try to pray, but no sound comes out. You wonder if heaven has grown tired of listening, and yet, in that hollow silence, something sacred stirs. You hear not a voice, but a question rising from within. Do you trust me when I say nothing? The words cut deep. Trust without evidence. Faith without confirmation. Surrender without understanding. That is the hardest obedience. You realize that perhaps the breaking is not the absence of God, but His method of reshaping your heart into something stronger. Tears come without warning. They fall not from sadness, but from the sheer weight of release. You no longer fight the process. You no longer pretend to be strong. You simply allow yourself to break. Because sometimes the only way for faith to grow is for pride to die. You fall to the ground, the dust mixing with your tears, and whisper, "I can't do this anymore." The words echo, and for a moment, you fear they are the end. But then, in the silence that follows, you feel it, the faintest warmth. It doesn't come from outside. It rises from within, small but undeniable. It is not an answer, it is presence. You realize that the fire never left you, it was only hidden beneath your striving. The breaking did not destroy the flame, it revealed it. You begin to understand that surrender is not defeat, it is transformation. You remember the stories: Joseph in the prison, David in exile, Moses in the wilderness. Every chosen one was broken before they were crowned. Every promise had to survive the desert before it became destiny. You begin to see that your breaking point is not a detour, it is the design. It is here, in the ashes, that true faith is forged. You rise slowly, not with strength, but with honesty. The world has taught you to hide your weakness, but heaven calls you to expose it. Because where you end, God begins. Every tear is a testimony that you still care. Every question is proof that you still seek. Every crack in your spirit is a doorway for light to enter. You speak aloud, not to demand, but to declare. I will not give up. Even if I break, I will break believing. The words surprise you. They feel like rebellion, but holy rebellion, the kind that defies despair. You feel something shift again, a quiet courage that does not roar but refuses to die. You realize that resilience is not loud, It is silent faith that keeps breathing through the fire. The breaking continues, but now it feels different. It is no longer destruction, it is refinement. You begin to let go of timelines, expectations, and the need to understand. You start to notice that even in the desert, there are small signs of life, a whisper of wind, a flicker of light, the quiet strength that comes from surviving one more day. You are not thriving yet, but you are still standing, and that alone is a miracle. You lift your eyes to the horizon. The same horizon that once terrified you now feels like a promise. You realize that you are no longer waiting for rescue. You are waiting for revelation. The desert did not erase your destiny. It prepared you to receive it without fear. You now understand that every breaking point carries a hidden beginning. The fire that once burned you now burns within you. You are not who you were when you entered this wilderness. You have lost much comfort, certainty, innocence, but you have gained something eternal. You have found the strength that comes only from surrender. You no longer ask, "Why me?" You now whisper, "Use me." The storm may have tested your courage, but the silence has tested your heart. And it is here, at your breaking point, that heaven begins to rebuild you, not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be. And as you stand there, surrounded by the dust of what once was, you feel it again, that sacred whisper, steady and calm. This is not the end. This is the becoming. If you feel the truth of these words, write 333 inches the comments. It's a prophetic sign that your faith is being refined, not broken. And remember, the breaking point is not where your story ends. It's where your spirit begins to rise. The chosen one. The night has grown colder. The stars that once guided you now seem distant, faint, almost indifferent to your wandering. You walk through a valley that feels endless, where echoes replace answers and silence speaks louder than prayer. You have survived the storm, endured the desert, and passed through the breaking. Yet something deeper now begins a journey through the shadow. You thought faith would banish darkness, but faith has only made you see it more clearly. The shadow is not outside you anymore. It has moved inward, settling quietly in the corners of your heart. It whispers that you have failed, that you were never truly chosen, that all your endurance was for nothing. These thoughts feel heavier than chains. You try to ignore them, but they follow you like ghosts that know your name. You used to call the darkness evil. Now you begin to suspect it is sacred, not holy in comfort, but holy in purpose. Because without shadow, you would never notice the fire. Without the night, you would never long for dawn. Every chosen one must pass through this secret crucible, where the soul learns the difference between believing in God and trusting Him when everything collapses. The shadow teaches in silence. It strips you of every false identity. Titles, achievements, applause, all burn away until only truth remains. And truth, you discover, is not gentle. It reveals the parts of you that believed faith was a transaction. It exposes how much of your devotion was built on the expectation of reward. You see yourself clearly now, not as a hero, not as a saint, but as a human, trembling before the mystery of divine will. And it is here, in this unbearable honesty, that the fire begins to rise. It doesn't come as comfort, it comes as confrontation. It burns through your pretenses, your self-sufficiency, your illusion of control. You fall to your knees, not in defeat but in purification. The fire is both judgment and grace. It does not ask for permission. It consumes everything that cannot stand in truth. The shadow does not flee from it, it merges with it, revealing that what you once feared was never meant to destroy you, but to reveal what was eternal within you. You remember the story of Moses and the burning bush, fire that did not consume, voice that came from flame. You realize now that the same fire burns in you. It is the presence that has followed you through every storm, every silence, every breaking. You did not lose it, you only stopped recognizing it when the light faded. The shadow was not the absence of God, it was the canvas where His flame could finally be seen. You look around and realize how much has been taken from you. People who once walked with you have drifted away. Dreams you once cherished have turned to ash. You are surrounded by loss, but strangely, you no longer feel abandoned. You feel refined. You begin to understand that true faith does not cling, it releases. What was never meant to stay had to burn away for your spirit to breathe. The fire grows brighter within. It no longer burns you, it becomes you. You start to walk differently, slower, steadier, with the kind of quiet authority that comes only from having nothing left to prove. You do not need validation anymore. You do not chase signs. You have learned that the truest proof of purpose is peace in the middle of the unknown. The shadow still follows you, but now it feels like a companion. You realize that the shadow and the fire, were never enemies. They were teachers. One reveals your limits, the other reveals your power. Together, they shape you into something unbreakable. You understand now that your calling was never about rising above darkness, but carrying light within it. You begin to hear again, faintly at first, that voice, the one that called you, "Come." It sounds different now, not as command, but as conversation. Do you trust me even when I lead you into the fire? The question burns, but your answer is simple. Yes. You do not hesitate. You do not ask for proof. You have walked through too much to still need certainty. The fire answers not with words, but with warmth. It fills the emptiness that once haunted you. The more you surrender, the stronger it becomes. You begin to see that the light does not come from above, but from within, from a heart that has been broken and remade in obedience. The same fire that once felt like punishment now feels like presence. You realize that God was not testing your faith to see if it would break. He was revealing its strength. The night is still long. The road is still hard. But something has changed. You no longer walk to escape the darkness. You walk to illuminate it. You are no longer the one who fears the fire. You are the one who carries it. The shadows around you begin to bend. Not because they vanish, but because they recognize the authority of light within you. You start to speak differently now, not from fear, but from flame. Your voice carries weight. Your silence carries power. You no longer rush to explain yourself. You let your presence do the talking. Because when the fire is real, it doesn't need validation. It simply burns, and the world cannot ignore it. You look back once more at the path you've taken, the storm, the desert, the breaking, the shadow. Each season once felt like a curse, but now you see the divine symmetry in it all. Every loss was an invitation. Every silence was a summons. Every trial was a teacher. And now, standing in the light of your own fire, you finally understand the chosen are not called to comfort. They are called to transformation. The wind shifts. The flames dance around you but do not harm you. The shadows retreat just enough to let you see the road ahead. It is not smooth. It winds through valleys and climbs steep mountains. But you feel ready. Not because you have conquered fear, but because you have befriended it. You no longer need certainty. You have something stronger, conviction. You take your first step forward, and for a moment, the darkness bows. You feel the ground beneath your feet awaken. You are not just walking anymore. You are moving with purpose that burns brighter than the pain that birthed it. The fire does not fade as you move, it spreads. It touches the world around you, leaving behind not destruction, but light. You are the shadow and the fire, now human enough to feel, divine enough to rise. If you feel this awakening in your soul, write 333 inches, the comments. It's a prophetic sign that your fire has been seen by heaven. And remember, the shadow was never your enemy. It was your altar, the chosen one. The fire burns within you still, yet the world around you seems unchanged. The sky remains gray. The road ahead remains long. You have walked through storms, through silence, through shadow and flame. And yet, what greets you now is not triumph, but stillness. The kind of silence that feels alive like the moment before dawn, when everything holds its breath. You stand at the edge of something vast, something unseen. You can feel the promise stirring beneath the surface, but it refuses to reveal itself. You wonder if this is the end of your endurance, or the beginning of your becoming. The silence stretches, and with it, your patience. You want to ask heaven, why now? Why wait? Why this emptiness, after everything I have survived? But the answer does not come in words. It comes in wait. You realize this silence is not punishment, it is preparation. The pause before the glory, the sacred stillness where heaven rearranges what the world cannot see. The silence before victory is always the loudest, not because of noise, but because of the absence of it. It amplifies every doubt, every fear, every unfinished prayer still lingering in your chest. You start to remember the story of Jesus in the tomb. Between crucifixion and resurrection, the silence of the second day. The world thought it was over. Heaven called it waiting. That in-between space is where faith either dies or deepens. You begin to understand that your silence is your second day, the space between what you lost and what you will rise into. You take a breath, deep and unsteady. The air feels heavy with unseen motion, as though creation itself is holding its breath for you. You walk slowly now, not because you are tired, but because you sense that each step has meaning beyond your understanding. You realize that even waiting can be holy, even stillness can be obedience. You think back on the journey, the storms that broke you, the fire that rebuilt you. You see the pattern now. Every silence that once terrified you was followed by revelation. Every delay that felt like denial was shaping you for something bigger than answers. You begin to see that the divine does not rush, it refines, and yet, you are human. You ache for evidence. You want to know if all this pain has a purpose. You whisper into the air, "Am I closer to the promise? Or have I lost my way entirely?" The silence answers with no sound, but your heart senses movement, faint, steady, eternal. You begin to suspect that heaven's timing is not measured in days, but in depth. The deeper the silence, the greater the glory it conceals. The longer you wait, the more you see yourself differently. You no longer feel the same desperation to escape the unknown. The fear that once consumed you has become a strange kind of friend. You have learned how to breathe in the dark. You have learned how to trust without signs. You have learned how to believe when everything tells you not to. That is power, quiet, invisible, unstoppable. You walk through the valley, and the stillness follows like a shadow that watches over you. You begin to hear faint whispers again, but they sound different this time, not the voice of doubt, but the echo of destiny. They remind you that silence is not the absence of God, it is the language of trust. It is where He hides the blueprint of your next chapter. You sit on a stone at the edge of a quiet plain. The horizon glows faintly, as if dawn is preparing to break, but hesitates. You remember how far you've come from fear to faith, from breaking to burning, from confusion to conviction, and you finally understand that you are no longer chasing purpose, you are becoming it. You were never waiting for destiny to arrive. Destiny was waiting for you to awaken. You close your eyes. The stillness deepens. For a moment, you hear your own heartbeat echoing like a drum in eternity. It is then that the whisper returns the same voice that once called you, "Come." This time it says, "Be still. The next move is mine." The words pierce you. You realize that surrender is not passive. It is the highest form of faith, the kind that trusts even when all movement stops. You are no longer the one who demands answers. You are the one who carries peace, even in the absence of them. This is what it means to walk by faith, to trust that what is silent is still sacred. The silence stretches on, but now it feels like music. Every breath, every heartbeat, every waiting moment begins to sound like worship. You find beauty in what once felt unbearable. You begin to feel joy, not loud, not ecstatic, but deep, quiet, unshakable. The kind that cannot be stolen by circumstance. The kind that comes only from surviving what should have broken you. You look around and realize that even the earth is waiting with you. The trees are still, the wind soft, the sky unmoving. You understand that creation itself pauses before glory. You are not delayed. You are aligned. You are standing in the holy stillness before something magnificent. You think of those who doubted you, who misunderstood your silence as weakness. They did not see that stillness was strategy. You were being rebuilt in secret. What was hidden in the dark will one day burn in the light. You will not need to announce your arrival. Your endurance will speak for you. You stand again. The horizon brightens faintly, not full dawn yet, but promise enough to move forward. You smile, not because the waiting is over, but because you finally understand its purpose. The silence before glory is the place where your spirit learns to see without sight. You walk again, steady and sure. Each step becomes a declaration. Even when nothing moves, I still believe. You whisper softly, I am ready, even if I don't understand. And with that surrender, the first light breaks across the horizon. Thin, fragile, beautiful. It touches your face, your hands, your heart. The silence does not end. It transforms into peace. You finally realize that glory does not come after silence. Glory is born from it. If you feel this peace within you, Write 333 inches the comments. It's a prophetic sign that your silence is sacred, not empty. And remember, the quiet is not your delay, it's your preparation for glory, the chosen one. The dawn finally comes, not in thunder, not in spectacle, but in light so gentle that it almost feels undeserved. You stand at the edge of a new horizon, watching the world awaken beneath a sky you once thought would never clear. The silence has lifted, and in its place, there is stillness, not the kind that holds fear, but the kind that carries peace. You realize that glory does not arrive with noise, it arrives with awareness. It is not something that descends from above, but something that rises from within. The journey did not make you chosen. It revealed that you always were. Every storm, every breaking, every shadow, every silence, they were not detours. They were the sacred path that brought you here. You remember how it began, the voice that said, "Come," the doubt that tried to drown you, the fire that refined you. You can still feel the scars of those nights, the weight of unanswered prayers, the ache of the wilderness. But now, they no longer hurt. They hum with power. The pain that once defined you has become the proof of your transformation. You no longer need to explain your journey. You carry it like light. You breathe deeply. The air feels different, full, alive. You can sense that something ancient and divine is moving again, not around you, but through you. You are no longer waiting for the call. You have become the call. The voice that once whispered, "Come now," speaks through your own soul. You are the message. You are the miracle that others have been waiting to see. You take your first steps into the morning. Every footfall feels like prophecy. The same ground that once held your tears now holds your testimony. The same silence that once broke you now amplifies your purpose. You no longer walk with fear. You walk with fire. But it is not the consuming fire of survival. It is the steady flame of alignment. And as you walk, you begin to see them, others like you. The ones still lost in their storms, still trapped in their breaking, still drowning in silence. They do not know yet that they are chosen. They carry the same ache you once carried, the same confusion you once called failure. You look at them and recognize yourself in their eyes. You do not pity them, you bless them. Because you know every chosen one must walk through their own fire before they can rise. You begin to speak, not from authority, but from empathy. I know what it means to be crushed by calling. You tell them, I know what it means to pray in silence and hear nothing back. I know the weight of believing when belief feels impossible. Your words are not sermons. They are scars turned into scripture. You do not preach to impress. You speak to awaken. The world begins to notice, not because you shout, but because you shine. People sense something different, a calm that defies logic, a peace that does not depend on circumstance. They cannot explain it, but they feel it. They feel the fire that no longer burns you but lights them. That is what it means to rise, not to escape the world, but to transform it by presence alone. You realize now that your faith was never meant to stay private. It was meant to ripple outward, to ignite hearts that have forgotten how to believe. You are not the end of the message. You are the continuation of it. Every act of kindness, every word of courage, every step in faith, it all becomes part of a larger symphony that heaven has been composing since before you were born. The dawn grows brighter. You can see the landscape ahead, vast fields, high mountains, deep rivers. It is not easy terrain, but you are no longer afraid. You understand now that chosen ones do not wait for the path to be smooth. They walk knowing that every rough stone is a reminder that they were built to endure. You are not meant to live untouched by pain. You are meant to live undefeated by it. The fire inside you grows softer, steadier. You begin to sense that the purpose of your rising is not to be seen, but to serve. You no longer chase blessings. You become one. Every word you speak now carries weight because it was forged in silence. Every step you take now leaves light because it was shaped by shadow. You stop for a moment and look at your reflection in a pool of still water. You barely recognize the person staring back. The eyes that once trembled with uncertainty now carry the calm of conviction. The face that once bore the marks of worry now glows with peace. You smile, not from pride, but from gratitude. You whisper, I made it through the fire without losing myself. The wind shifts. You hear that voice again, familiar and eternal. Well done. Not as praise, but as partnership. Heaven no longer speaks to you as a distant master. It speaks through you as a trusted friend. You understand now that the divine